At Citi Field in New York, it's the final day of the season as the New York Mets play the Cincinnati Reds. Mets baseball is presented in HD by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. He came to the Mets as a fresh-faced 19-year-old way back in 2003. Jose Reyes has made quite an impression over his 8.5 years as a Met. He's won the hearts of the Mets fans. And today, on the final day of the season, Jose Reyes tries to become a batting champion on what could be his final day as a Met.
Pete is an original Met who joined the club
good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. I'm Gary Cohen. Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez join me in just a moment as the Mets close out the season as they take on the Cincinnati Reds. Jose Reyes has had an extraordinary year for the Mets. It's been an extraordinary couple of days in Major League Baseball. Here at Citi Field, though, Reyes goes for a batting championship. Mets have never had a batting champion, and what makes it even more intriguing is that Reyes is a free agent at the end of the year and could leave the team after today. And Keith, as far as going for the batting title is concerned, he's got a 1-point lead on Ryan Braun. Braun plays tonight. If you're going for a batting championship in this circumstance, what is your strategy?
Well, your strategy on your first at bat is to get a base hit by hook or crook. That puts the pressure on Braun. Now, Braun, like I said yesterday, is an hour behind at time zone wise. He's going to be very much aware of what Jose is doing. It's Jose's batting title to win. He's got the 1-point lead. The pressure's going to be on Braun. He had a wonderful game last night, the 2 home runs, 3 hit nights back-to-back. Really put him in position now that he's in. And there's a couple scenarios here. I know the Mets would like to get him out, but he wants to earn it too. So for Jose, if he goes 2 for 2 in his first 2 at-bats, it's going to be very tough for Braun to catch him. So this could be history in the making, Met history. It could be the first batting champion in Mets history. I'm excited.
Well, he got a number of ovations from the crowd here last night. He had a terrific game. And the crowd, although not large today, certainly is one that will be emotional when it comes to Reyes because they know this could be the last time they see him in a Mets uniform.
Well, I think it really will be. I went down and shook his hand and said it was great watching him play in case he does not come back. It's interesting, you were talking about 8 seasons ago. He got his first base hit as a 19-year-old off John Thompson in Texas, and he hasn't really stopped hitting since. Arguably, I think, the most exciting player ever to wear a Met uniform. I think he's the most athletic shortstop to ever play the position, and it's going to be an interesting, melancholy, and happy day here for Mets fans.
Well, it's the last day of the year, but there's certainly a reason to watch as Reyes goes for a batting championship. It's the Mets and the Reds on the last day of the 2011 season. All the action coming your way on SNY. Brought to you by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Pepsi Max. By Fast 5. Own it on Blu-ray and DVD on October 4th. By Partners Executive Transportation. Let Partners chauffeur you safely to and from the ballpark. Call them at 800-894-9414 or visit them online at partnersexecutive.com. And by Citi. Visit the official online shop of the Mets at Mets.com. Browse the largest online selection of authentic team gear, including official caps, T-shirts, jerseys, collectibles, and more. Get your team gear straight from the source. Shop the Mets.com shop. Well, Jason Isringhausen staying busy on the final days of the year. The Mets and Reds close out the season. First pitch is coming right up. By Lowe's. Visit Lowe's to pick up your instant win game card for a chance to win World Series tickets. Compliments of Scott's. Cloudy day here at Citi Field for the final game of the season. Here's the Cincinnati Reds starting lineup. Brandon Phillips will sit out to protect his .300 batting average on the final day, and so Paul Yanish plays second base. Jay Bruce hit his 100th career home run last night, 32 this year, and the Reds, who won the National League Central last year, 79 and 82 heading into the finale. And 40-year-old Miguel Batista gets the final day start for the Mets.
Well, Miguel Batista, you see that his numbers this year, he started with the St. Louis Cardinals, was released by that team. The Mets signed him straight away, and making the last start here in 2011.
And Alexis, New York Metropolitan defense, and I think it's Jose Reyes' day today. You can see how many games he has played, and 10th most in Mets history. I thought it was a great shot in the open, Gary, of Jose as a young man when he first rookie year with the Mets, when he had the short hair and the baby face, and now he's evolved to this great player and on the verge of a National League batting crown.
Keith, he was so young then that he's still young.
28 years old.
Right.
I mean, he's got a whole career ahead of him. And I think, when he goes on the open market this offseason, whether the Mets are able to re-sign him or not, there's been so much talk about will his price be devalued because of injury and all that. But the fact of the matter is he's a player just entering the prime of his career. And I think that whatever contract he signs, that's going to be the consideration.
Well, if you want to say the Pujols is the #1 guy going on the market, Reyes is 1A.
Well, there'll be lots of interest, for sure.
Drew Stubbs will lead things off for the Reds. He was responsible for helping end the game last night. A suicide squeeze bunt in the top of the 13th inning, bringing home the winning run at a Cincinnati 5-4 win. So the Reds going for a sweep of this final series. The biggest number attached to Drew Stubbs, 205. That's the number of times he struck out this year.
In 600 at-bats.
Only the second player in history to strike out 200 times in a season. And Batista gets it started with a fastball low and away for ball 1. It'll be Stubbs and Edgar Renteria and Joey Votto for the Reds. Well, this is the last day of the season, and most of the action is going to be tonight, which is a shame because we had so much fun last night following along on what was arguably one of the most intriguing days that I've ever experienced watching out-of-town games in the major leagues, because you have so many races undecided. In fact, here we are on the last day of the season, and there's not a single postseason matchup set yet. You've got 2 wild card races that are tied going into the final day. You have home field yet to be decided, other than the teams with the best record in each league. So you've got a batting championship to decide here. Prince Fielder hit 3 home runs last night. You have a home run championship to decide. It's been amazing the last 24 hours.
I think it's become so commonplace when we think of Drew Stubbs with 200 strikeouts, 205. In the year that Williams hit 406, he had over 600 plate appearances, at-bats.
David Wright backs off to play the hop and throws out the speedy Stubbs for the first out.
Almost 500 plate appearances, and he had 27 strikeouts in that season. I think that kind of puts it in perspective, the 200 plus.
Getting back to all the important games that are still to be played, and they're night games. The only game of consequence that's a day game today is the Texas and Angel game. Gary, as you know, the Texas has a 1-game lead there for positioning in the playoffs as far as getting a home field advantage.
And I believe that's a night game as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it says here a day. So they're all night?
Yeah.
What do you think about ending on a weekday?
Well, I think they're going to change it next year. For one thing, the schedule next year has it going back to a Sunday finish. But I also think that if they are going to finish whatever day it is, whether it's a weekday or a weekend, everybody should play in the daytime. And, it allows, all the final races to coalesce all at once. And also, it allows the postseason teams to get where they're going with a little more alacrity and a little more rest, particularly if there are going to be some 1-game playoffs tomorrow. Edgar Renteria pokes one toward the middle, and it scoots on through for a base hit. So Renteria aboard with a 1-out single. But think about what happened last night. You had the Red Sox with their backs against the wall have a third-string catcher hit his first 2 major league home runs, Ryan Lavarnway, who, by the way, Ronnie didn't tell us this last night, but he knew that Lavarnway is a Yale grad. Did you know that?
You got to hold things in check. I can't give it all to you guys all the time. Come on. Amazing, right?
So you had that, and then the Red Sox barely hung on in the 9th inning to win that game. Then you had the Rays down 3-2, Yankees with the bases loaded, and the Rays turn a triple play. I mean, how many triple plays are there in a course of a season, much less the second last day of a pennant race?
Fielder hits 3 home runs. I mean, on and on and on.
Cardinals come from 5 runs down to beat the Astros. And then the capper for the day was the game in Arizona, with the Diamondbacks and Brewers fighting for home field in the first round as Wright watches it go into the crowd out of play. The Dodgers score 5 runs in the top of the 10th, 2 out and nobody on in the bottom of the 10th, and the Diamondbacks scored 6 runs, capped by a Ryan Roberts grand slam to win the game 7-6. What a day!
Unbelievable. And in the Cardinal game, one of the big reasons they came back was Alan Craig who took over for Matt Holliday because he couldn't go because of the bad hand.
Hand's hurting him again. They also have Rafael Furcal out with a hamstring injury. What you have in a lot of cases are teams really limping toward the finish.
Well, you've got in Milwaukee Gallardo pitching that important game. Their ace at 17-10, at 17-10 record, looking for his 18th. Carpenter's going against Brett Myers in Houston. Ted Lilly against Saunders in Arizona. So it's a good matchups.
Down to first base, a foul ball. No, Atlanta and St. Louis going to the final day, and you see that the Brewers have one more win than the Diamondbacks for the home field advantage in the first round. The Diamondbacks, though, have the tiebreaker, so if Arizona wins tonight and Milwaukee loses, Arizona would get the first round home field and would take on the Phillies in the first round. No, the loser would take on the Phillies in the first round.
Phillies with the best record.
Right. Arizona would play
Milwaukee.
Either Milwaukee or Atlanta, because the Phillies can't play Atlanta. See, that's the thing. I mean, here we are the last day, and none of the matchups are set. Same thing in the American League. The Yankees know that they're going to play either Detroit or Texas at home, and the wild card winner, whoever it turns out to be, will go to Detroit or Texas, depending on who gets the home field there. Same scenario there. Tigers have one less win than the Rangers, but the Tigers have the tiebreaker. Up and away to Votto, and it's 3-2. Votto hitting at 310.
Bad day to be a traveling secretary, I guess.
Plan A, B, and C.
That's right.
So John Lester for the Red Sox has a big start tonight.
On 3 days rest, Keith.
Right. And he has not been good coming down the stretch.
And it's Mr. Price at 12-13 for Tampa Bay with a big start.
Now, the interesting thing for the Braves, as they come into the final day, they'll have their ace Tim Hudson on the mound, and Joe Blanton's going for the Phillies, but Blanton's only going to pitch 2 or 3 innings, and then Cole Hamels is supposed to pitch in relief for Philadelphia. There goes the runner, and Votto grounds one off the glove of Evans, but deflects to Tejada, and Batista gets over to cover for the 3-4-1 putout as Renteria moves to second.
Did we not have a similar play? Was it last night or 2 days ago?
It was last night, but last night the ball did not deflect to the second base.
Right.
He went for a base hit.
You know, Gary, you raised an interesting point. Blanton's going to start against Atlanta. If you're Freddie Gonzalez, do you start your right-handed lineup or do you start your left-handed lineup if you know that Hamels is coming in?
That's an interesting
question. That's a very good point, Ronnie.
You know, Matt Diaz is a guy that would absolutely play, you would think, maybe against Hamels.
Well, maybe you start with your left-hand hitters, and then you can always flip off because you do have expanded rosters.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your powerful bench.
The Braves have another problem, which is that their shortstop Alex Gonzalez is out with a calf injury, although they do now have a capable backup in Jack Wilson. The Astros are trying their best to play spoiler. Beat the Cardinals the first game of that series at a 5-0 lead last night before it got away. 0-1 to Jay Bruce, who hit his 32nd home run last night, and he grounds one. Tejada to his right. And the running toss gets him at first to end the inning. A hit and one left. Jose Reyes leads off the bottom of the first when we come back. today for Jose Reyes, as he takes his first at bat in pursuit of a batting title. Edison Volquez on the mound, and Reyes takes ball one. Here's your Mets starting lineup, brought to you by Geico. Reyes a point ahead of Braun heading into the final day. And drops down a bunt, and it's a beauty. Francisco has no play, and Reyes has a hit under his belt. Well, he knew from the outset that he wanted to try and bunt for the hit, and he pulled it off perfectly, something Reyes has done very little of this year, and his batting average goes up to .337.
Well, not only a perfect bunt, but also takes all the pressure off Jose and places it firmly and squarely on the shoulders of Ryan Braun. It's so critical to get that first hit.
And Reyes is coming out of the game right now. They're taking him out after a leadoff hit. And so Reyes, after leading off the bottom of the first inning with a bunt single, exits. Now, keep in mind, Reyes is now at .337.058. Ryan Braun could overtake him by going 3 for 4 tonight.
Well, to be honest with you, I am not going to agree with this move at all. But it is what it is.
Well, Terry Collins had said that he might take Reyes out quickly if he got a hit. But the math is that if Braun goes 3 for 4 tonight, he can win it. So there's where Reyes finishes at .337. Now Ruben Tejada with Turner pinch running at first, and ball one is outside. I'm a little stunned.
I don't know what to say.
I mean, I knew that Terry was going to take him out of the game at some point. I didn't think it was going to be this point.
I totally disagree with this. I am of the camp that if Reyes goes 2 for 2, he puts serious pressure. If he went 2 for 2, Gary, Braun would have to do what?
He would have to go 4 for 5.
Okay, fine. Okay, if you want to do it that way, but I just don't agree with it.
You know, it's not only that. I think just for the fans, I would have sent him out to the field if you were intended to take him out. His Volquez number, nightmare year. Send him out to the field and then make a big to-do about taking him out and having the entire length of the field to walk out. But
I think that the move caught the crowd so flat-footed they never even had a chance to cheer him off the field.
Well, they booed the decision. That was their reaction.
I mean, if you had sent him out to the field even for the top of the second and then taken him out at that point, he would have had a longer walk off and he could have doffed his cap and gotten the cheers. But clearly the Mets did it. I mean, the reason they did it is to try and protect the batting championship, and I understand that. But
to me, they opened the batting championship. Just the opposite.
Fly ball out to right by Tejada, and that's the first out. Wow. And, you know, for a crowd, it's not a very big crowd, but the people who came here today came here to see Jose Reyes and to give him some kind of a send-off. And now he's done for the day and potentially done with his Mets career.
It's just, to me, a whole mindset. It's not just, baseball's a microcosm of society, and I don't know what to say. It's disappointing.
Willie Harris pops one up to shortstop, and Edgar Renteria stands under it. 2 out.
And we'll look at the Coors Light Reds defense. You see the Gold Glover out there, Edgar Renteria, the veteran, great career. And everybody else, Votto, fine player over there. The outfield's a bunch of big power hitters that strike out a lot. And David Wright, his last game of this season. And who knows what's in store for David Wright.
David 2 for 10 in this series, hitting .253, 14 homers, 61 RBIs, and unless Wright has a huge day today,
Carlos Beltran will be the Mets RBI leader for the season, despite having been traded away 2 months ago. Beltran had 66 RBIs before he was traded. By the way, Beltran's numbers are going to end up being spectacular, even though he got off to a slow start after being traded and ended up having very little impact on the Giants' ability to win the West, which was the reason they got him. He's 7th in the National League in OPS, so it's been a very impressive year for Carlos.
Hitting over 400 in September.
Turner at first with 2 out, and Volquez tosses over. It's been quite a downturn for Edison Volquez's career. Volquez in his rookie season in 08 went 17-6, 3.21, but nothing good has happened to him since. Tommy John surgery in 09, a 50-game suspension last year. Visa problems this year, late to spring training, and just an awful season. He gets right on the comebacker to end the inning. Jose Reyes makes a cameo appearance and gets a bunt single in his only at bat on the final day of the year to finish his season hitting .337. Will it be enough? We won't know that for a whole bunch of hours. Is in at second, and Ruben Tejada moves over to short. Chris Heisey leads off the second inning and takes a strike. Heisey 3 for 10 in this series, including a 3-run homer on Monday that proved to be the difference in the Reds' first game victory. It'll be Heisey, then Juan Francisco, and Devin Mesoraco for the Reds in the second. And Batista jams him and he pulls it foul. Juan Francisco waits on deck. Ball and 2 strikes to Heisey. Miguel Batista making his 4th start for the Mets. He's worked both as a starter and as a reliever. His last start was against the Cubs on September 11th. Filling a spot on the final day, necessitated by the Mets having to play a doubleheader last weekend. This was to have been R.A. Dickey's spot on the final day, but Dickey had to go Saturday instead of Friday, and so rather than bring him back on 3 days rest, Terry Collins opted to send Batista out there for the final start. And who knows if Batista will be back next year. He's, you know, he's a 40-year-old journeyman who's been with 10 different teams. But amazingly, if he's not back, he would be the 10th pitcher for the Mets to start on the final day of the season and not return the next year.
Really?
It's already happened 9 times in club history that the guy who started the final game of the year did not return to the Mets again. It'll be his finale with the team.
That's shocking to me, because usually, you know, one of your core starters is going to make that last start trying to get one more win.
Here's your list.
Okay.
Rob Gardner, 1966. Bill Latham, 1985. Pete Schurik, 1993. Juan Acevedo, 1997. Armando Reynoso, 1998. Oh, boy, we remember that one.
All those wonderful years.
Glendon Rush, 2001. This one's driven to left field off the bat of Heisey, and he's got himself another extra base hit. Harris plays the carom nicely, but Heisey and easily with a leadoff double. Jeremy Griffiths made the final start in 2003. Tom Glavine, 2007, also one he'd prefer not to remember. And Nelson Figueroa in 2009.
Wow.
How about that?
So you don't want to make that last start here for the Mets, do
Well,
you?
the Reynoso and Glavine ones were, you know, significant because the Mets had a postseason chance going into the final day in both cases, and let's just say neither one of them fared well.
I know the Glavine one. Tell me the Reynoso one.
Mets were in Atlanta. They went to Atlanta the final weekend of the season and basically needed to win one of 3 games to at least tie for the wild card that year. Right down to a knee, and makes the play on Francisco. Anyway, they lost the first game when Jay Payton, who was a rookie at the time, pinch ran and tried to go first to third on Andrew Jones with Mike Piazza on deck. Yeah, that was Friday night. They lost the game Saturday. Then Sunday, Mets were down 1-0 in the top of the second. And rather than batting for Reynoso, Bobby Valentine let him hit with the bases loaded. And then Reynoso gave up 4 runs in the second. And that was the end of that. So the Mets got swept in Atlanta that last weekend and did not make the postseason. Came back and did the next year, but without Reynoso.
That was back in the day when there was no love lost for those two teams, Atlanta and the Mets, and there was no love lost between Bobby Valentine and Bobby Cox. I mean, those were bloodbaths.
That's true.
Competitively speaking.
It's also fair to say that there wasn't a whole lot of love lost between Bobby and most National League managers.
Bobby Valentine, you're
yeah.
saying. Yes.
Tejada to his left and throws out Mesoraco for the second out as Heisey goes over to third.
Well, I feel like all the air is out of the tire here.
It's really true. I mean, the whole day was built around Reyes and the batting race in the last day, and he might win the batting championship. I mean, you know, it's hard to go 3 for 4, which is what Braun needs to do tonight. But to have him leave the game so precipitously certainly comes as a shock to everybody watching. Although, you know, Terry kind of hinted that he was going to do this. It's just, it was a little surprising the way in which it was done. A little jarring. Well, here's Paul Janisch, and he floats one toward the mound, and there's Batista to grab it, and the side retired. A double and 1 left, middle of the second on the final day with no score. no score. Volquez, who used to have those dreadlocks hanging from underneath his cap, has gone with a different look after being twice exiled to the minor leagues this year.
Do we have Ralph Kiner in the booth today in that final game?
Ralph will be here in the next inning.
Where is he?
We'll get him here, Keith. Don't panic. It's no emergency. Nick Evans leads off in the home second inning. Nick 3 for 10 in this series. And he takes a strike. It'll be Evans, Baxter, and Polino for the Mets in the bottom of the second.
Last day of the year is notorious for the large strike zone and swing the bat.
Big hop comes up for Francisco, and Evans retired, one away. What is the mood for a team that's out of the race on the last day? Are you just looking to pack your bags, get in the car, and get out of here?
Certainly. Absolutely. And the team on the road is the old expression, you got one foot on the bus. But if you got at bats, you take your at bats seriously. And for me, defensively, even if it was a young kid, you just couldn't slough it in the field. You just can't do it. But you do want a nice 2-hour game. Adios, amigo.
Nice play by Yanish, and he gets Baxter by half a stride for the second out. Baxter got the memo, first pitch swing.
Well, I'm thinking of Mike Baxter, of course, Mike from Whitestone. Keith, in our day, what packing was there to do? We lived here.
Exactly. It's a very wonderful thing.
Mike will be home in 10 minutes once the season's over.
It was always get in the car, get back in Manhattan, and it's a day game. You can have your first 5 o'clock sunset happy hour.
5 o'clock today?
Oh, happy hour taking batting practice.
That's something to shoot for.
Sometimes it was plural, the hour part of it.
Well, last year, the Mets played 14 innings on the last day of the season.
You recall that, yes.
Well, this year they played, 13 innings in the second to last game, so maybe that took care of the overtime. A ball and a strike to Polino.
So what a shame that all the rest of the games are at night, and we have to wait until later on the Milwaukee game and to see what Braun does and all the things that are unfolding as far as the playoff picture. Oh well.
Maybe after that happy hour today, you can check out some of the games tonight.
Oh, I didn't think. I didn't. Yes.
I believe they'll all be available for viewing.
I am having dinner in the city tonight, and I'll truck it on home after rush hour. By train.
I was going to say, first you got to get to the city at rush hour. Swing and a miss, and Polino down on strikes. Volquez has his first. No score at Citi Field after 2. Batista gets set to face the Reds in the third with no score. Ralph Kiner is with us for the final day of the season. Ralph, were you as puzzled as we were when Reyes came out of the game?
Well, it's a no-win situation. They cannot win that when there's no argument that's going to stand up. And you take a player out of the game when he's playing chicken. Now, I don't know who's wrong. I mean, did the player want to go out or did the manager want him out? But there are so many instances where players have been beaten on the last day, and one was with the Cincinnati Reds, and the guy that was in the Cincinnati Reds that did it was a very great player, and he sat in the bench and didn't want to hit. And Bill Madlock of the Cubs went 4 for 4 and won the championship.
It was Ken Griffey Sr.
Ken Griffey Sr.
Little ground ball for Turner to play, and he gets Volquez one away.
And you look at Ted Williams, who said, they said to Ted he had 400 wrapped up with a doubleheader against the Athletics in Philadelphia. And he said, no, I want to play. And Ted Williams went 6 for 8 in the ball game and ended up hitting 406. He said he wanted to play, and he also said it again after the first game when he also had it wrapped up. And he said, no, I want to play in the doubleheader. And he could have lost it there, the possibility of that. So how do you win that one? I don't know.
Drew Stubbs lines one to left, and Harris grabs it 2 out.
Well, we were talking earlier, Gary, about the outfielder for the Detroit Tigers. Was it Harry Heilman? Was that his name?
Right.
He won the batting title similar to Ted Williams, where he had a doubleheader one year, and he won 3 batting titles. And he had a doubleheader the last day of the season, went 3 for 4 in the first game, and he had it pretty much in his favor. And he insisted on playing the second game, and he got 2 or 3 hits again and won the batting title.
There's another instance that was interesting. We'll get to that in just a moment, but it's really a situation where you really are compelled just to avoid the fact that you did not want to play and not win it, and win it big, or win it, or not win it real bad.
Well, the other piece is, I mean, it's one thing if you have it absolutely wrapped up. I mean, if Reyes went 2 for 2 and Braun would have had to go 4 for 5,
or 5 for 5,
5 for 5, then you can certainly.
Well,
you can almost defend it better, but now he's kind of left the door open. As hot as Braun has been down the stretch, I mean, 3 for 4 is certainly doable for Braun, and you know, you might think that you're sitting on it to win, but it might not work out that way.
Here's the question: are you comfortable sitting out after getting a base hit? Ryan Braun goes 3 for 4 and takes the batting title away from you. Are you comfortable with that? If you're comfortable with that, that's fine.
Renteria down looking to end the inning. First strikeout for Batista. No score in the middle of the third here at Citi Field. .com/Mets and Facebook.com/Mets. Join the conversation. Add your voice to the Mets social media community today.
You know, Gary, another great story about the last day of the year was Napoleon Lazois was 7 for 8 the last doubleheader of the season, and he beat out Ty Cobb for the batting title. And the 7 base hits were bunts.
All of them?
All of them. They bunted the ball, and they knew he could beat it out, and that happened in this situation. Again, Cobb was not liked by the players. He was the guy that would sit on the bench and sharpen his spikes on his shoes that he was wearing in the game for that day, and he would indicate that I'm going to show you these spikes and cut your legs.
To fight him.
Pretty tough.
Wouldn't win you a lot of friends.
That was a different time.
Well, he didn't have a lot of friends on his own team.
Well, right. We talked about Harry Heilman when he battled, I don't forget which year, he fought Cobb down to the last month and beat him out for the batting title, and Cobb wouldn't talk to him again. Cobb was player manager. The next year, he's got the batting champion, and Cobb in the first month and a half platooned him.
Wow.
Votto takes it himself to retire. Pride he won away.
Well, Giorgio Ho, the great home runner for the Japanese.
Yes.
He would play an American player, and I don't remember the name of the player, who was going to beat his home run record for the season. He wouldn't play him the last game, so he couldn't beat it.
Ty Cobb had 12 batting championships. If Lajoie doesn't get the 7 bunt hits and Heilman doesn't beat him out, maybe he had 14.
And number 2 on that list, Hannes Wagner, it was the most by a shortstop in the history of the game.
And honestly, of course, was a coach of the Pittsburgh Pirates when I played there, and what a great man he was. 8 batting titles. What a player he was.
You saw him play, Ralph?
I did not see him play. No, thanks.
Have you met him?
Thanks, but I did meet him. I know him very well.
No offense, Ralph.
Francisco throws out Batista for the second out. Well, Hannes Wagner was part of the original Hall of Fame class in 1936.
He was one of the great players, if not the greatest player of all time.
I know.
He's classified right in that role.
It's interesting because we think of Ruth and Cobb from the early days of the 20th century as being the preeminent players in baseball, but I think that at the time that Wagner was considered their equal or better.
They played in the World Series, one of the first World Series of all time, and Wagner was the better of the two between Cobb and Wagner.
It was interesting. There's a great book about DiMaggio's 56 game hitting streak called 56, and it was a wonderful read. And you're talking generational here, and Tris Speaker was involved with the Yankees. He was an outfielder, and he played in the dead ball era, right, Tris Speaker? And he complained about DiMaggio when DiMaggio was coming up, and the great player that he was instantly, playing too deep a center field.
Well, Speaker did play very shallow in center field, but it was the dead ball era. There's no question about that. But Speaker was a coach of the Cleveland Indians, and I played my last year in the major leagues, and that was 1955. Speaker was an outstanding outfit.
So I always find it interesting, generationally looking at it, that Speaker played before DiMaggio, and then DiMaggio, arguably one of the greatest players of all time. People will say he might have been the greatest player of all time. Who knows? But maybe the greatest center fielder, and he's getting a complaint from a guy that played behind him that he's playing too deep. I found that one of the most interesting parts of that book that I read.
3-2 to Justin Turner, and he fouls it off.
And one thing about Joe DiMaggio, when he broke into the minor leagues, his first year in the minor leagues, he hit in 61 consecutive games.
With the San Francisco Seals?
For the San Francisco Seals. And his brother Dominic also played for the San Francisco Seals. And Vince DiMaggio played for the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Boston Rays.
Edison Volquez has retired 9 in a row. We're through 3 on the final day at Citi Field with no score.
Ralph?
Including you.
Fourth inning, Joey Votto leads off against Miguel Batista. Votto grounded out his first time up. Batista's allowed just 2 hits. Volquez just 1. And Votto fouls off the first offering.
You were talking about Stubbs with his 206 strikeouts. When DiMaggio hit in the 56 games, that year he struck out only 13 times all season long. And for a home run type hitter to have 13 strikeouts, unbelievable.
Even then, it was impressive. Can you imagine now?
Maybe we can have Dave Freed look up what DiMaggio hit at batting average wise in the statistics during those 56 games.
I think he wore 408. I think
he wore it out.
Yeah, 408. I think Ted Williams had a big hitting streak the same year, and he out-hit DiMaggio in his hitting streak, but it was not 56 games. And of course, DiMaggio was the MVP that year. Ted Williams hit 406, and he was not the MVP.
I know we're waxing nostalgic here. Another part of that book was when DiMaggio started his streak, he was in a slump, mired in a slump. And he was trying to work through it. And the batting coach was the great Hall of Fame catcher for the Yankees, Bill Dickey. And Bill Dickey's quoted in there as saying he didn't want to, never intruded upon DiMaggio. Joe would come to him when he wanted help. And ironically, DiMaggio was having breakfast with his first wife, who was a movie actress, and she kind of meekly said to Joe, "I see something different in your stance." And DiMaggio looked at her over breakfast and said, "Oh, really?" She goes, "Well, honey, I always sit in the same seat." She said, "I am seeing only either one of your numbers or 2 of your numbers on your back.
I normally I
only see one. Whatever the difference was." And Joe went in and it clicked with him, and he went on that tear from that point on. And I found that very interesting, that the wife had the observation. I thought it was terrific.
You know, Dorothy Arnold was the first wife of Joe DiMaggio. Dorothy Arnold was a movie star.
Here's Jay Bruce, who grounded out his first time.
Joe was 2 for 2 of movie stars.
Or 0 for 2.
Well, you said that. He had a son by Dorothy Arnold.
Out to right center field, chasing Pridey back a few strides. Well, glare, although it's not sunny at all, and Pridey didn't need the sunglasses. His hand was enough. That's the second out. By the way, the other piece about that 56-game hitting streak is that the Yankees went 41-15 during DiMaggio's streak. So it wasn't like he was doing it in a vacuum. Here's Heisey, who has one of the 2 hits off Batista, a double to left in the second inning. Since then, Batista's retired 8 in a row.
And Joe, over that 56 games, went 91 for 223, a 408 batting average. Good call, Ralph. 15 home runs, 55 RBI.
In those days, they called them RBIs.
Well,
on comes Harris to call, and he makes the catch.
I know, Ralph. I know. Forgive me.
It's the last day. He's a little tired, Ralph. Make allowances. Ruben Tejada leads off the home fourth inning, pops up the first pitch. And Joey Votto puts it away in foul ground. One pitch and one retired for Edison Volquez, who's now retired 10 in a row. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin.
Well, guys, Terry Collins talked to Ruben Tejada and told him that he wanted him to work on his speed this offseason. So Tejada's going to go home to Panama on Friday. He'll spend some time there. But then in November, he's going to go back down to Port St. Lucie and work with Nitro as one of the Mets strength and conditioning coaches down there and really do a lot of speed and agility drills. Not so much the weight stuff, just work on burst and things like that. He'll spend a month there, go back home to Panama for the holidays, and then report early in January and really just try and focus on that initial step on speed, even a little bit on base stealing while he's down there as well. Guys?
You know, it's nice to get Matt Dunn some face time.
Yeah, Matt Dunn is very underrated. I felt he needed some time.
Francisco lets
What are you doing here?
Roll.
He's just on the computer.
You know, Matt Dunn is a really hard-working guy. He's a producer for SNY. He's at the ballpark hours before the game, transcribing every press conference, making sure that everybody has what they need. He's one of the many people who make our job a lot easier.
I love what Matt done. I'm not blowing smoke here. Matt, I love what you do. I love getting those emails with Terry Collins's pregame interviews. I get them because sometimes I get stuck in traffic and I can't make it. So you are my savior. So hey, have a great winter.
You'll be forwarding part of your salary.
I'm serious though. I love that, getting that from Matt.
Matt, just one of the dozens of people who are part of the small army that it takes to put these broadcasts on. And you know, we get to talk to you, get to see our faces, but there are dozens, if not hundreds, of people who make it possible.
You know, Gary, my question is Matt still going the credits now that we showed him? I mean, do we take him out now that he got FaceTime?
Well, he'll be on the credits with a little line through his name,
okay,
or a little check mark, because, you know, he's already been thanked. Willie Harris on with a walk. First one given up by Volquez, who had retired 10 in a row. David Wright coming up. Well, there are all sorts of people who we need to thank for another wonderful season of Mets baseball here on SNY, our 6th year. And there are some people who work just tirelessly to make sure that this operation runs smoothly. And it starts with our technical manager, Ed Ryan, and our operations people, Jeannie Palmer and Bill Clark, and all the other folks in SNY operations who make sure the truck gets to the city where it's supposed to go, make sure everything's hooked up properly. There is so much technical stuff to do to get one of these games on the air. I can't even fathom it. And those guys just are they're meticulous, and they have to be.
They could do our job. We certainly couldn't do theirs.
That's exactly right. 1-0 to David Wright. And his bounce foul. I would like to, if I could, thank every one of our camera people, our videotape operators, our audio people, our video people individually, but there are literally hundreds of them who work over the course of the year, so I don't want to slight anybody. But we will run all of their names on the credits after the game today. But those guys are unbelievable.
This is the A-team, Bill Webb's A-team. Bill never gets upset when he's here in New York. You should see it's our director, Bill Webb, and our award-winning director, Bill Webb. And we also have Greg Picker, our producer, who's fabulous and is with us all the time. Dan Barr and Schulte, the crew in the truck.
Can you at least once give Greg Schultz's full name just so people can hear it?
Is it Greg Schultz? Or I always thought it was Schulte. Because in German, with the E at the end, you pronounce the E.
He doesn't have an E at the end.
Oh, well, forgive me. Schulte, forgive me.
Only when he's in Yorktown. Only when he's in Yorktown on the Upper East Side. You can call him Schulte. But
Schulte procures the automobiles for us on the road to get us out of the ballparks.
He also does all of our graphics, which is, you know, a big part of our broadcast.
Yes. But back to my point with the camera crews here. The camera crew here. The cameramen here are Bill Webb's A-team, and really Bill chooses all the sites here for his camera angles. He's in charge, and there they are. And I will see you guys after the game in the camera camera crew room after the game. I will say goodbye. These guys are the best, so they bring you the best possible broadcast and enhance us up here, which is very difficult.
Well, they shoot the game with great precision and artistry, and you know, we go all around the country and have lots of cameramen who help us out on the road, and when we come home, we really understand just how great our people are.
You know, there's a lot of times on the road where we honestly have to let everyone know where we're going to go and what we're going to talk about. We never have to do it here at home. As soon as we start, they listen, and we get the shot instantaneously. It's such a joy.
And you know, these guys, they're family men, or we play night games. It's, you know, so their families. We appreciate what they go through, because we have the same thing. The night games are murder. I wish we could play more day games, but in today's age of television, we do not.
Funny thing about people in this business, whether you're in audio or camera or TV, they always get looks from the neighbors because they're outside weeding the grass, cutting the lawn, doing all the other stuff, and people look at them kind of, what do those guys do? They're home all day.
Yeah.
No, they're home all day.
Home in the morning.
But they're out all night.
Exactly. What are they doing out all night? Well, then there's Greg Calvin and Phil Antonucci, our audio pros in the truck. Got all our 8-2s who work up here in the booth, our other audio folks, Richie Rayner and the whole crew, and they are just they're superb at making sure the game sounds as good as it looks. Make us sound good. It's hard enough to do.
Oh,
we showed all the camera people except Al, because Al gets enough FaceTime during the year.
Camera 2. The infamous camera 2.
Thanks, Al. 3-2 to right with 1 out. And Harris takes off. And David bounces 1 foul. Then got our truck engineers, NEP and Anthony and Wayne and Freddie, making sure everything works properly. Somebody's birthday today.
And we got to give a kudos to Brian Small, the traveling secretary, who's taken care of us all year, who's been fabulous. And a lot of times, Ronnie, you have to go early and you come in late. I'd come in late. He's always taking care of the rooms for us. He's done a great job. Kevin Kirsch, the clubhouse manager for the Mets. He had probably a very challenging job coming in, and he made it seamless. He was just outstanding, great guy, always has a smile on his face, and as efficient as anyone could ever be.
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, there you go.
Other folks with the Mets, Lorraine Hamilton and David Newman, who are of infinite help to us on a daily basis. This will be the 11th pitch of the at-bat to right, and he dribbles one. Tough play for Francisco, and he has no play. An infield hit for David Wright. So the Mets have 2 men on. That's the Mets' second hit, and they've both been infield hits. Now Nick Evans comes up, and of course the great media relations staff headed by the now disabled Jay Horwitz, and we send out all our best to Jay, who's getting rehab done on his ankle. Probably the most serious ankle injury in history. David Wright's coming out of the game. Josh Satin running for Wright. So with Reyes having left the game earlier, now Wright comes out as well.
Well, another season for David, and it's been a tough one for him.
Well, he missed 2 months because of injury. Winds up with 14 homers, 61 RBIs. You extrapolate that over a full season, it's a pretty good year. Certainly not the year he was hoping for, though.
You know, David came up when the Mets were in transition, and they struggled early, but then became very competitive early in his career, and now on dark times, it's doubly difficult.
Evans hits one into center field. That'll fall for a hit. Harris got a good break, and Stubbs bobbles it in center. And so Harris scores easily with the game's first run. Nick Evans with an RBI single to put the Mets on top 1-0.
Well, a good fastball right there to center field. And the bobble makes it no play at home plate. That's on top.
So 1-0 New York, and now Mike Baxter. A few more thank yous. Folks at the Elias Sports Bureau, Steve Hurt, Ken Hurt, Bob Waterman, who's here every game and knows more about the Mets and Mets history than probably anybody.
Consumed more cheeseburgers this year than anyone.
How does he do it?
I don't know.
He puts on a pound.
He's in good shape. I see Bob every day, and the last month I said, Bob, you got nothing better to do? You're out of your mind?
And speaking of the cheeseburgers, all the folks in the food room, people who feed us.
Yes.
Very important part of our lives.
You know what? We come here after 13 or 14 innings. It's a day game the next day. Everyone in that room always has a smile. I don't know how they do it.
Laney and Charles and Lucas and Gracie do a great job every day.
And we can't forget Bellin. Bellin is wonderful.
Tireless. Ball one to Baxter. Then there's the security guards.
Yes.
Again, too numerous to name individually because I don't want to leave anybody out, but those guys are fantastic, and most of them have been here for year after year after year, and they are wonderful.
And folks, they keep the throng out of the booth here. They're storming the gates. They're wonderful. Storming the gate.
Reyes goes out to grab the pop-up by Baxter for the second out. I do have to single out Jack and Brian because they bring the crumb cake up here every Sunday morning.
The crumb cake is awesome.
Yeah. And who have we left out? Well, our bosses.
Well, how about
Steve Rabb, Kurt Gowdy, and of course Andrew McVersey, who handles all the PR for SNY, makes us look good in the newspaper.
Actually, I'm going to dine in the city with Andrew tonight.
Make sure you do that because otherwise all those nasty stories they would write about us, he'd let them go.
I feel like the 1920s in Hollywood when they cover up the stories.
Renteria fields the grounder, makes the flip to get the force, and the inning is over. Mets get the first run of the game on Evans' hit and lead at 1-0. Terry Collins here, his thoughts on managing in New York. Plus, find out what he thinks of the team's biggest need is heading into next season. Mets Weekly, new episode Sunday at 6, only on SNY. There's your Delta fifth inning recap. Jose Reyes bunted for a hit in the first inning, then left the game, ending his season with a .337 average. 2.5 points ahead of Ryan Braun, who plays tonight for the Brewers against Pittsburgh. Juan Francisco leads off in the 5th inning against Miguel Batista, who now has himself a lead to work with. By the way, the Brewers are facing a young left-hander tonight, Jeff Locke, his 4th big league start, looking for his first major league win. And as we mentioned earlier, Braun needs to go at least 3 for 4 to outflank Reyes and win the batting title. It's a big task, but knowing Braun, it's possible.
Well, you know what I find interesting is that, we've seen Jose leave, we've seen David Wright leave. In that game, you're going to play at least 7-8 innings or so, because the National League doesn't start their postseason until Saturday.
And the other thing is the Brewers still have something to play for.
Yeah.
They want home field in the first round, and it's probably as important to Milwaukee as it would be to any team because of their home record.
And, they came back a little to earth, but in the first half of the season, other than the Mets when they went into town, were unbeatable in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee needs a victory or an Arizona loss to clinch a first-round home field advantage. Juan Francisco grounded out to third base his first time up. And off the fists, he pops one up. And back goes Tejada to get it. One away. That's 10 in a row retired by Miguel Batista. One out of the 5th, and Devin Mesoraco comes up.
Batista has really done a good job for the Mets, and he's got quite a few miles on him. He's only given up 2 hits in this game.
I mean, at this point, if you're Miguel Batista, don't you just want to sign with a team you haven't been with yet next spring?
Fill out your dance card?
Why not?
The record used to be 10 teams, but I doubt if that still stands.
Was it Mike Morgan?
Mike Morgan
Mike
at 12,
Morgan,
12
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And very interesting. You were bringing this up off the air earlier, Ronnie. Another well-traveled player might have another new address soon in a very unusual situation. As Batista throws out Mesoraco, Bruce Chen, who at one time pitched for the Mets, could be on the move today.
We were talking about it before. That remember you mentioned that Chris Capuano, the Red Sox had come and were interested maybe in Capuano making one start because it's too late to be eligible for the postseason, of course. Well, they're thinking, the Red Sox, of doing that with Bruce Chen in case they have to play game 163. Remarkable.
So if they traded for him today and then they don't get to 163, he'll never pitch for them.
That's right.
At least not this year.
He'll be on the roster.
Well, he's had an amazing season. I think 12 or 13-8.
Very good year for Kansas City. Paul Janisch is 0 for 1. Hit a little bloop that Batista caught his first time up. I can't think that has ever happened, that a team has made a trade for a player on the last day of the season. Josh Satin stayed in the third base after pinch running for David Wright. I mean, we talked at the time of the Capuano conversation about Rick Honeycutt, who got traded with 5 days to go in the season. That's ball 4, and so Batista issues his first walk as Janisch is aboard. But Capuano was not traded and made his final start of the year last night. Quality start, 9 strikeouts in 6 innings, wound up with a no decision. Now Edison Volquez up for the second time. Grounded out in his first at bat. You think there are more shutouts pitched on the final day of the season than any other day of the year?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's true or not, but I know the games are quick. I'd like to know the game clock, or how long games take on the final day of the season as opposed to the regular season, which is what, 2:45 or something like that?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
Doug Harvey was a great umpire in the Hall of Fame of baseball, and Doug Harvey would tell you on the last day of the season, the boys, their strike zone's going to be enlarged today.
That's fair. At least give us warning.
and leave your engines running in the car.
You wouldn't want Frank Pulley behind the plate. Frank Pulley would do it on a day game and 95 degrees, get up the plate, and Frank would go, "Boys, I don't get paid for overtime. Swing the bats."
Second strikeout for Batista. We are halfway through with the Mets leading at 1-0. Vodka. Enjoy the game with a cocktail perfected with Absolute Vodka, the ideal choice for the 7th inning stretch. Absolute Vodka, cocktails perfected. Enjoy with absolute responsibility. Jason Pridey drills one down the right field line. One hop to the wall. Pridey has had a strong finish to his season. Walks in with a leadoff double.
Well, Friday certainly has done a good job with the glove in center field and the outfield also. And the one thing he has to do is be able to hit better. He came into this ball game hitting at .229.
Seven hits in his last 16 at bats now, including 5 extra base hits in that span. So now Batista will go up there to bunt. Batista grounded out his first time up.
Mets are woefully weak in bunting runners down on the sacrifice.
Yeah, but he hasn't been here all year. He'll be fine.
Nice job by Batista, and a tough throw for Giannis to handle. Or, excuse me, Votto at first base, but he moves his feet nicely, and they get the out. You know, Terry Collins was talking about the Mets' lack of bunting success earlier today, and he said that, you know, for all the practice they've done bunting in spring training, most of it has been done against machines. And he said even the machine that can dial up to 140 miles an hour, the ball still comes in straight. And the problem that they've had bunting has been, you know, once a pitcher starts putting some movement on the ball, pitchers have not, especially the pitchers who haven't bunted well, have not adjusted accordingly.
You need to get a college kid or someone to come in and throw, recreate what it's like in a game, go from the stretch, hold the ball for a long time, quick pitch, fake a throw to first, all those kind of things that will happen as you're up there waiting. You know, a lot of
infield in for Turner.
Sorry, Gary. A lot of times you'll square around the bunt, and the pitcher takes so long, you kind of, you know, get stuck in cement. All those things should be done the way they're done in a game.
You should have shortened that up a little bit and say, just learn how to bunt.
There you go. That's better, Ralph.
Runner holds. And Renteria throws out Turner 2 out. Well, Terry said in the spring they will be taking a lot more live BP and bunting.
But live VP is not the answer, because live VP is throwing nice, easy fastballs right down the middle. The answer is what we just mentioned, the fact that you make it look like a real game and have him go on curveballs and different pitches and that sort of thing. Ron Darling put it very nicely and succinctly.
I got an idea for you, Ralph. You've got an in with everyone. You know everybody. How about you get Buddy Harrelson to come down for 10 days? Let him work with the pitchers. I'll tell you right now, they'll know how to bunt. Best of all time.
Well, Buddy might not want to come down because he's a owner of a ball club and he's rich.
That's right.
Renteria on the backhand. Throws out Tejada to end the inning. So the Mets waste a leadoff double. After 5, Mets 1, Reds nothing. For today, Jose Reyes, the 4th player in Mets history to finish with an average over 330. Who were the other 3?
How about Cleon?
That would be one.
And the other one was a left-hand hitter, I believe.
Well, there are 2 of them. Because there are 3 altogether.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention.
I knew that.
Forgive me.
Drew Stubbs leading off in the 6th inning. He's 0 for 2. And Tejada throws out the speedy Stubbs, 1 away.
Oh, Ralph.
It's an old Pirates jersey, isn't it?
You know, I don't have a old Pirates jersey.
Are you kidding?
We didn't have, we only had one set of uniforms at Pittsburgh. And they took them back at the end of the year.
You don't have a uniform in the Hall of Fame or anything?
No.
Really? I'm sure they can get you one, Ralph.
I couldn't fit in there anyway.
Well, we'll get one to fit you.
Yeah.
But you're talking about recreating one, but he's talking about
the original
jersey, which probably got destroyed at some point.
Ralph, what was your playing weight?
What time of my career?
Let's say
your prime.
In your prime.
In your prime.
190.
190.
I would start the season heavier than that, and I played every game, so it didn't make any difference.
How much heavier? How much heavier?
I would start around 200 pounds, and I'd lose at least 10 pounds in the regular season.
I always start the season 10 pounds heavy.
Yeah.
And by middle of May, you were down, just about.
Right, yeah. Of course, when you play doubleheaders and hot weather and that sort of thing, you're going to lose some weight.
You got to store some fat to carry you through August and September.
I don't think guys do that now.
No, and that's why I think they run out of gas. One of the reasons. I think they're too fit, and the schedule is much more rigorous. Although Ralph might contend that.
Well, we did play 154 games.
And you've been on trains. But I tell you what,
now.
Ralph, with the extra teams on the West Coast, the travel's brutal.
Yeah, but do you ever fly trains?
Well,
I mean,
before my time.
On the airplane, you get there. 5 hours cross country or 6 hours, something like that.
There's more times now, Ralph, in today's game where they go cross country. They don't have an off day coming back or going to, and they go that extra time. It used to be 10 days on the road on the West Coast. You'd play San Francisco, L.A., and San Diego, and you have an off day flying out, an off day in the middle, right, Ronnie?
Yes,
and then an off day coming back.
Well, there are fewer off days in general now because you don't play double headers.
Well, let me ask you this. What about the fact that most of these guys are platoon players? You only play against right-hand pitching or left-hand pitching, depending on which way you hit. But so you don't really play full seasons. The only ones that play full seasons are the guys that are really good players.
That's true, and that's what I'm talking about. Really, is that I just think that the schedule today is more rigorous than the schedule when I played. That's I can only speak for myself, and that's not making an excuse.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, the games are longer. Second of all, there are fewer off days. Again, you used to play double headers, and double header is Reyes out on strikes would last 4.5, 5 hours. Now, if you play a double header, it's 7.5 hours minimum.
And the day-night double headers, you can have them. I'd rather just get them over with. Just give me half hour in between games. Let's go get them.
Actually, it's better for a hitter.
Yes.
To play double headers than day-night double headers.
I used to love the double headers. I always felt I can get 6 hits.
Yeah, the second game of the double header, you've been up 4 or 5 times, and it makes it a little bit easier for the hitter.
Joey Votto's 0 for 2. And Batista, for a rare time today, is behind in the count, 2-0. But I think it's interesting that you guys would start the season 10 pounds heavy, and I wonder whether, in addition, Keith talked about players now wearing down. I wonder whether it also, now because the guys are so much more finely tuned, leads to more pulled muscles, especially all these oblique injuries.
I'll tell you another interesting thing about the old-time players is the fact that they would be injured. They would never tell anybody they were hurt. And so they played when they were hurt, because if you got out of the lineup, you might not get back in again.
Well, a pulled hamstring is a pulled hamstring, though, Ralph. I mean, it's tough to play on that. I mean, I had one only once in my life, thank goodness, and it's murder.
No, but you're talking, Ralph, about having a deep bone bruise. If you get hit in the helmet, you got to be out there the next day. All those kind of things that they are much better at taking care of the player today.
Well, everybody in Ralph's era had heard of Wally Pipp.
Well, I'd heard of Wally Pipp from my father.
Wally Pipp was the guy who took Lou Gehrig's. We got him in. Got Lou Gehrig in the lineup.
And Wally Pipp was quite a player.
He was a good player. You bet he was. He was a very good first baseman.
The legend is he had a headache and took himself out of the lineup.
Who would be the manager? Was it
that could have been true.
Was it McCarthy the manager
Miller
then?
Huggins, right?
Miller Huggins.
Ball 4 to Votto, so he's on with 2 outs. Second walk given up by Batista.
Miller Huggins was hung over the back of a caboose on a train once by his heels, and Babe Ruth was the guy that had him out over the rails.
Oh, by his ankles.
Yeah.
Upside down.
Upside down.
Was he mad at him?
I don't think he was happy with him.
You're kidding.
I'd hate to see him mad if I was happy about it.
What a great story.
I'm wondering what it was that maybe got Babe so upset?
I'm thinking that story of recent note is always about the rappers that did that to one person. So they historically got their way of dealing with people, from Miller Huggins and Babe.
I think Babe Ruth was fined $5,000.
That's a lot of donuts in those days, Ralph.
Well, he made $80,000.
Well, the closest that I can think of was Frank Howard pinning Craig Swan up against the bus.
That's right.
Frank Howard was 6'8"?
Yeah. And the strongest man in baseball.
Remember that fight we had in Chicago with the people over our dugout?
That's right.
In '84, and Bill Robinson had a flash temper, the late Bill Robinson, our first base coach. And Frank was the interim manager. He was a coach. It was '84.
Yeah.
And someone said something to Bill over the front row, second row of our dugout.
I was pitching that game. What happened is I was coming out, and someone threw a full beer, and it hit me all over. And that's when Bill went crazy.
And Bill went up, had to pull him back, and was trying to climb over the top. He snapped, and the fans were getting into it, and all of a sudden Hondo comes out and said, anybody else moves, the one guy goes, you do one more thing, son, and I'll rip your throat out. And that was it. That was like E.F. Hutton.
I'll tell you, the guy you wouldn't want to get in a fight with in the modern day baseball, Dave Kingman. He was really strong.
I ran into him one time. Lynn McLaughlin, early in my career, we had a throwing match where we were knocking people down. And Kingman came storming out of Busch Stadium, the third base dugout, and I came in, running in, and Kingman was out of his mind. And I'll say it real quick. I saw out of the corner of my eye, Lynn McLaughlin got behind me, and it was just me. And Ted Simmons came from the left, missed him, and it was just me and Dave. He knocked me into the next county.
Middle of the sixth, 1-0 Mets. Nothing lead in the final game of the season. Willie Harris, who has scored the only run, leads off. And he takes a curveball for a strike from Edison Volquez. Harris walked and came home on Nick Evans' base hit in the fourth, 0 for 1 on the day. Josh Satin on deck, and then Nick Evans. If you were just joining us and wondering what became of Jose Reyes, Reyes led off the bottom of the first inning with a bunt single to raise his batting average to .337. And he was promptly removed for a pinch runner. Some of the crowd booed when Reyes came off the field. Not booing Reyes, but the decision to take him out at that point. And so Reyes about 2.5 points now ahead of Ryan Braun, who needs to go at least 3 for 4 tonight against Pittsburgh to overtake Reyes and win the batting title. Votto on the backhand. Flips to Volquez for the first out. Let's check in with the studio. Chris Carlin standing by with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Last time that a new manager was introduced on the last day of the season.
That's right. 4-year contract, right, for Ozzie? He'll do great down there.
As Jeffrey Loria said, welcome to a new era in Marlins baseball. Maybe this will take the attention away from their new logo.
Oh, that's bad, that logo. Nope. Have you seen it, Gene? No.
Oh, it's dreadful.
Really?
Oh.
I'm waiting for hair to start.
Last day of the season is unusual, but how about when you get fired in spring training?
Bring it up on the computer, Gare.
Phil Cavaretta got fired in spring training for the Chicago Cubs.
Josh Satin with an infield hit. That's 5 hits. It's 3 of the 5 that have been infield hits.
It's interesting. Francisco in this series has been pretty rock solid on the ball hit firmly at him. The ball coming in on has given him a little problem.
Now Nick Evans with 1 out and 1 on. Evans singled to center for the only run of the game.
Well, it's interesting. You say the new logo for the Marlins is hideous. And their World Series rings are pretty hideous too.
Well, they're big,
ostentatious.
They're hideous. I tell you what, with the gold the way it is now, I'd melt it down. Take my cash.
Well, you're such a sentimental one.
That's an ugly ring.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh no!
I'm showing Keith the
logo. That is brutal.
It's got about 9 different colors in it.
What is going on? So it's a big M.
It's a big M with blue and orange and yellow and white and gray, and then it's got like a little marlin fish thing that comes over the top in orange, black, gray, and blue.
Gives them the option of having 170 different uniform combinations.
Wow.
Now that has not been officially introduced, by the way. It's been leaked, but it's all over the place. And maybe they'll change it.
Leaked in today's world?
Hard to imagine that.
Did you like the
didn't even take WikiLeaks to do it.
There you go. Did you like the old Marlin uniforms when they had that teal color?
I didn't mind.
I didn't mind it. I did not mind it at all.
I like it better than the black ones.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
fond of those. I like the fact that the Mets are going to be phasing in blue uniforms. They've worn them a couple of times this year.
I like those. I like that color. I mean, I don't know what the color is, but I like it.
Maybe they'll phase out the black and phase in the blue. I mean, come on.
That might be the way it goes.
But I'm prejudiced because my favorite color is blue. It's a cold color. That's why I liked it.
I don't think you're in the minority, by the way.
There's such a yin and yang to you. It's like there's 2 halves of your personality fighting each other at all times.
Have you noticed that we did not hear from our producer in around 2 innings?
Last time I heard him, he was yawning. 1-2 to Nick Evans, with Satin at first and 1 out. Edison Volquez, who's had a dreadful year, trying to finish his season on a high note. And he strikes out Evans for the second out.
And where are you going to go on a last day of the season with 2 teams that are not going to be in the playoffs? You got to talk like this sometime.
Sure. Have some fun. Ralph, you can join in. I have a question.
I thought it was there.
I have a question for you.
Me too.
I have a serious question from you. You always said Ewell Blackwell was the toughest right-hander you ever faced.
No question about
But he's unconventional sidearm, right?
Right.
The whip. Who was the toughest right-hander you faced that was conventional pitcher over the top?
Bob Feller.
Oh, okay.
My fella, maybe a close third, probably Nolan Ryan. I didn't face him, but he was like fella.
Really?
Yeah, great fastball, great curve.
How about lefty?
I didn't see many left-hand pitchers. Our team was basically non-hitting, and they used mainly right-hand pitching against us. But lefty, I'd say Warren Spahn.
Baxter hits a deep to right field. Back goes Bruce up near the wall, and it's out of here. Mike Baxter with his first major league home run. Mike from Whitestone with his first home run in Queens, and it's 3-0 New York. That's a terrific moment for Mike.
Oh, your first home run is always one you never forget, but to be a hometown kid.
Well, the Mets picked up Baxter this summer, and he's getting a chance to play these last couple of weeks and taking advantage.
Got a fastball, they wanted it away and got it over the middle and up, and he made him pay.
From Archbishop Malloy to Columbia University to Vanderbilt, and now back to Queens where it started. And Baxter now has a home run, and his fellow Queens native Pedro Beato has taken possession of the ball.
Well, your first home run is always one to remember. Your last home run, I didn't think it was going to be my last.
That's right.
Who does? How many did you hit your last year?
I don't remember. I think it was about 26 or something like that.
Because Kingman hit 35 his last year, which I think is the most anybody's ever hit in their last season.
Wow.
I know Greenberg hit 25 his last year was with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I had 51 that year, and he hit 25.
There's the IoT pitch differential, and boy, that's stark.
Boy, they got that in a good part of the bat.
Molino hits one deep down the line, but it hooks and goes foul.
So quickly, Ralph, before this inning ends, Warren Spahn, he wasn't a hard thrower. What made him tough?
It was like Sandy Koufax. Had a great fastball and a great curve.
Oh, he did throw hard.
Oh, yes, he did. Had a rising fastball and a good curve. It's like Koufax. He won 20 games, 16 years.
Oh, I know that.
Stubbs puts it away to retire the side. Ralph, it's been great having you.
Well, 50 years now of baseball with the New York Mets. I enjoyed every one of those years.
We look forward to number 51.
All right. I'll buy that.
Thanks, Ralph.
Okay, bye now.
Meanwhile, Mike Baxter able to celebrate his first major league home run. And the Mets have a 3-0 lead going to the 7th.
Seventh inning. Miguel Batista working on a 2-hit shutout. And Chris Heisey leads off for the Reds. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt for an update brought to you by Absolute. Kevin.
Well, guys, obviously, and you've talked about it, Josh Tolle is a big part of this team going forward. And, you know, you learn, you adjust along the way. His first full major league season, and offensively he adjusted in the second half. He said it, he wants to get better defensively, and he's also going to adjust his offseason routine. And what he's going to do is change up in a little bit less on the weights. You know, last year is go way back, but finally hauling it in is Harris, and Heisey's retired. You know, he said last year, you know, just knowing that I had a full major league season ahead of me, I really, you know, want to do as much as I can weight-wise to prepare. So I was in the gym 5 days a week, sometimes for 4 hours a day, doing weights, doing cardio, things like that, and I hit twice a week. He said this year I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to focus more on the actual catching. You know, do catching drills, work with people, try and catch bullpens, work on blocking balls, incorporate a lot more of that, and substitute that. Instead of 5 days lifting, maybe you do 2 or 3 and substitute the other 2 days with the defensive drill. So he hopes that will get him in a better state going into spring training. Guys?
Well, it makes sense. You're preparing for a baseball season. Best thing you can do is prepare for playing baseball.
I always think that catchers, in our day, catchers used to do a lot of shuttle runs. And for you people who don't know that, it's kind of cones, and you kind of do little short bursts back and forth to increase your quickness. And that's always the most important thing for catchers. You know, you see a lot of guys who can't run, but if you watch Yadier Molina, who's any quicker than he is, baseball-wise?
You know, there's been a lot of studies in terms of athletes and the proper preparation and training and the physiology of sports training. And from what I've read, the conclusion that most physiologists have come to is that the best way to train for any endeavor, whatever it is to do that endeavor. The cross training is great, but ultimately, if you're going to be a runner, you have to run. If you're going to be a cyclist, you have to ride your bike. And if you're going to be a baseball player, you have to be able to replicate the things that you need to do in a baseball game in order to be successful.
Yeah, short bursts of speed if you're a guy who steals a lot of bases. Hand-eye coordination exercises are always great. I know before they had all the great equipment that they have now, Gary, we used to do a simple thing. I know, Keith, you had to grow up with this too. A weight with a rope, there's Arredondo up, tied to a stick, and you would just roll it up and roll it back.
A cylindrical.
Yeah, and just
your forearms.
Yeah, for your forearms.
You roll it down one way, roll it up, and then reverse it.
One of the best baseball drills of all time.
And it would build up your forearms and your wrists and your hands.
Which is good for hitting and for throwing.
Yeah.
Right?
And the fact that you're holding your arm out like Frankenstein, really out in front of you, you're also working your shoulders.
So what is the proper balance, guys? You know, I mean, I guess putting yourself in Tolle or any young guy's position, you know, you hear about the grind and the endurance needed, so you understand the thought, as Evans will put this one away. Francisco retired 2 down. You know, of getting in the weights and the cardio and making sure your body can handle the long season. What do you think is the proper balance for an off-season workout for these players?
Well, Kev, you're talking about a guy that did not work out in the offseason until I was 28. Okay, I didn't do anything. I never put on a pound. I could eat and do anything I wanted. And all of a sudden, when I was 28, I came to spring training, and I was 15 pounds heavier, and it was a shock. And from that point on, I was 215, and I was playing at 195, and that was, oh my goodness. And that's when they say your average person's metabolism slows down at age 28. And so I realized then that I had to start putting extra work in. Now, that being said, I'm a lazy guy, and then shame on me. I should have been working out. From that point on, I started running, and I found running long distance. I mean, this is a marathon, this game. To me, I found that when I ran long distance, and I used to run anywhere from 35 to an hour, depending on how I felt, 4 or 5 times a day, every other day in the off season. In the cold and during football season, when the NFL was on or college football, I'd go take a run at halftime. It'd be perfect. Do a half-hour run, come back for the second half. Perfect. And that gave me the endurance. But also, too, they say when you sprinters sometimes that they train by running long distance. Your 100-yard dash, you got to be able. That's a long way to sprint. So to me, the best thing I ever did, and all the weights and all that other stuff, was the long distance running 4, 5, 6 miles.
7 scoreless innings for Miguel Batista. Stretch time, 3-0 Mets. House presented by Pepsi, part of the New York Sports Local, today at 5:30 only on SNY. Edinson Volquez back out for the bottom of the 7th. Trailing in the game 3-0 after Mike Baxter's 2-run homer. Jason Pridey will lead off the bottom of the 7th. Miguel Batista's thrown 99 pitches through 7 scoreless innings. He's not yet come out on deck, but then again, neither is anybody else. We'll see whether Batista gets to stay in the game. Pridey ripped a double to right field his last time up, 1 for 2. There's Miguel.
Why not?
So he's planning on sticking around.
So I told Pete Flynn and went down and said hi to Pete and gave him a warm handshake and told him all you guys said hello to him. Okay.
Well, I can say one thing. I came over when I was traded in '83, middle of the season, and really didn't get a feel for the field. And there's strike 3 for Pridey. And it wasn't until '84 when you play 81 games at home, and I came. There's Pete, and I came with his ground crew friends there who do such a great job. And I came from an AstroTurf field, Gare, where you didn't have to worry about bad hops. And when you play on dirt, you have to have a confidence in the infield. And Pete always kept that infield immaculate. And I had absolute, total confidence in that infield. Very seldom got a bad hop. And Pete, just congratulations. And the grounds crew does a great job here. They do all the work to keep this field wonderful.
Pete Flynn, who is retiring after 50 years as a Mets employee, threw out the first pitch today. Pete came over from Ireland in 1961, landed in Flushing. He helped build the ticket booths for the Mets at the Polo Grounds in 1962. That's how long he's been a part of the Mets organization, as Batista strikes out for the 2nd out. And Pete has had such a colorful past, and he's meant so much to this organization. Before the game, the entire team came out of the dugout to shake his hand. I thought that was a really touching tribute for Pete. He was the guy who drove the Beatles to the stage in 1965 and then drove them off to their helicopter when the concert was over. And then when Paul McCartney made a surprise appearance at Billy Joel's last concert at Shea, Pete drove him again in the golf cart to get him to the stage.
Brought the Beatles over to Idlewild.
You know, when the fans tore up the field when the Mets clinched the division and then clinched the pennant in 1969, had to resod the field within hours to try and get the field ready for play again. For many years was the head groundskeeper for the Mets and has been on the staff now for 50 years, and he has been a mainstay for the Mets in all 3 of their homes, and we wish Pete and his family all the best in a great retirement. Justin Turner bounces one slowly, and Renteria throws him outside, retired. Mets go out 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 7th. Here's to Pete. 3-0 Mets.
Hi, laddie.
SNY for the behind-the-scenes access, player reactions, and a complete game breakdown with exclusive on-field interviews and Rex Ryan's post-game comments. Jets post-game live presented by Toyota Sunday immediately after the game, only on SNY. Paul Janisch up for the 3rd time, 0 for 1 and a walk. Miguel Batista just threw his 100th pitch of the afternoon, and he has been tremendous. He's allowed just 2 hits, and they came in the first 2 innings. A single by Renteria, a double by Heisey, and since Heisey doubled leading off the 2nd, the Reds have had only 2 more base runners, each on a 2-out walk.
Is Tim Burdick up and thrown in the bullpen?
Let's answer our AT&T trivia question. The 3 Mets besides Reyes who have hit over .330 in a year. Well, Ralph mentioned Cleon Jones. Of course, John Olerud, highest batting average in Mets history. And Lance Johnson, 1996, hit .333. Had 227 hits that year, a Mets record. Strike 3 called. Janisch down on strike.
So when he had those 21 triples that year or no?
21 triples, same year, yep.
Wow. He's hit over .330.
Jose Arredondo up in the bullpen. Edison Volquez will leave for a pinch hitter. Yonder Alonso will be that pinch hitter.
This might be the best pitch game from the stretch since Hideo Nomo. I mean, every pitch from the stretch. Throwing a shutout.
Well, Nomo threw a no-hitter from the stretch in Colorado. And Alonso first pitch swinging. Grounds one out for Turner. 2 out. So 2 out and nobody on. Drew Stubbs coming up. You know, if Reyes does win the batting championship, and he's 2.5 points ahead, and Braun needs to go 3 for 4 to beat him, it'll be the first men's batting champion ever, and the Mets came into existence in 1962. But that would not be the longest drought for a team not having had a batting champion. The longest current drought belongs to the Athletics, who hasn't had a batting championship since 2 cities ago. Their last batting championship was when it was the Philadelphia A's 1952. Ferris Fain won the batting title.
Pretty good fielding first baseman.
Yeah?
Oh, gosh. My dad told me about Ferris Fain, one of the great fielding first basemen.
They're the guys who have come the closest to winning batting titles. Olerud finished second to Larry Walker in '98. Leon Jones, Dave Magadan each finished third in the league. And Reyes has a shot. A good shot.
The other teams, it's interesting to know, I think the fans would be interested, is Bobby Avila, who was a very good player in 1954 of the Indians. And Tommy Davis, 1963 with the Dodgers.
And there's actually one other streak longer than the Mets streak, and that's the Phillies, who haven't had a batting champion since 1958. Richie Ashburn won.
Yeah. And you got Frank Robinson the last time for an Oriole was 1966.
Won the Triple Crown that year.
And the Astros have never had a batting champion.
And neither of the Brewers, by the way.
Correct.
Which, you know,
wow.
So you got Reyes and Braun battling, each for a franchise who've never won a batting title.
Let's hope Reyes gets it and we go for the MVP next year. Right?
What about the other thing?
The other thing, you keep telling me it's never going to happen, so I'll go with you since you're the.
Stubbs grounds one for Tejada, and a high throw, and Evans able to stay on the bag to end the inning. So Batista threw 8, working on a shutout. Hasn't had one of those since '06. Ends up 3-0. Brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture, proud to be the furniture store of the New York Mets. By Cholula Hot Sauce, want the perfect balance of flavor and heat. Add Cholula Hot Sauce to your next meal. Just look for the iconic wooden cap. And by Capital One Bank's no closing fee refinance. What's in your wallet? Back-to-back conference action kicks off as the Scarlet Knights head north for their Big East opener at the Carrier Dome. Then catch the Huskies as they host the Broncos at Rentschler Field. Rutgers at Syracuse, followed by Western Michigan at UConn. Coverage begins with City pregame Saturday at 11:30 on SNY as Jose Arredondo pitches the bottom of the 8th.
Setup man for all those years in Los Angeles for Francisco Rodriguez. Now over here with Cincinnati. Outstanding fastball, outstanding split finger for Arredondo.
Problem with Arredondo is he can be wild and walk too many people.
2-0 to Tejada, who's 0 for 3. Chris, during that last update, was talking about the pitching matchups in the National League wildcard race games. I think what's fascinating is who's going on the other side in the American League games. You know, you got Lester going for the Red Sox against Alfredo Simon, who's had such a terrible year for Baltimore. And then Tampa Bay will be going up against Dellin Betances, who will make his first major league start for the Yankees.
Wow.
Terrific prospect, but who knows what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Two and two now to Tejada. But the other thing about that matchup is you got Lester going for the Red Sox, Price going for Tampa Bay. If they win or if they both lose, who pitches tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, that's why we were mentioning Shen, right?
What about for the Rays? They just used Hellickson and Shields. Going to Wade Davis at that point?
Yeah, or someone's going to have to go on short day's rest, and everyone in the bullpen. I mean, James Shields pitched yesterday. He could be in the bullpen for a couple of innings. All hands on deck when it comes to that.
And then if you win, you got to start the division series on Friday in the American League. Swing and a miss. Tejada down for the first out in the bottom of the 8th. Well, we thanked a lot of people along the way, and there's nobody we need to thank more than Kevin Burkhardt, who has done such a, well, let's just put it this way. There's nobody else who does Kevin's job in the world who does it as well as Kevin does. And I think that all of us appreciate that greatly. And Kevin, 5 years with us, and you have been spectacular, my friend. Thank you.
Well, it's obviously it's a pleasure to work with you guys. I mean, for all of those years, and you that everyone sees, and people in the truck that people don't see that you mentioned before, and it has gone quickly, that's for sure. And you know, I think this year, guys, this year for me was really about a couple of things. But I think when you look at obviously Collins and Alderson and the new regime coming in and trying to, you know, change everything, change the whole plan of the organization from top to bottom, you know, try and restock the shelf a little bit, try and change the philosophy, whether it's the hitting philosophy or just the draft philosophy, all of that, and move forward. And I think that certainly is in stage one. And then I think from on the field, you looked at Reyes from the get-go. Everyone knew this was going to be his walk year and going to be a story the whole year long, and how red hot he was and how fun this team was to watch in June when they were just electric at the plate, and you know, going to Detroit and Texas and knocking off some of the best teams in Major League Baseball. And then it was also Carlos Beltran, who played merely 3 spring training games, and then, you know, ended up having a great season for the Mets before they traded him away. And I think this team showed a lot of guts. I think they did a lot of things right, but I think in the long run they still need a lot of player upgrades to get to the next level.
Well, thanks, Kevin, for your insight all year long. And this, you know, in some ways it's a step back for this team. I mean, they won 79 games last year. They'll win fewer this year. But in some ways it's the laying of the groundwork for what they hope to come.
Well, it definitely is a step forward. In 1983, when I first came to the Mets in September, it was a big-time second division club. But you could see that you had some pieces. You had a new first baseman who came over, was going to make a difference. You had a future rookie of the year who was playing right field who would get it later that winter. I knew of the guys that I was pitching with in AAA. So, you know, the year might not be a success as far as the numbers are concerned, but as far as watching the team, having to talk about the team and what we do here, it was, miles from where it was a couple seasons ago.
I think watching the Mets this year and watching the Cincinnati Reds last night on half a dozen occasions not run hard, it made you realize how far the Mets have come.
That's right.
And that has everything to do with a new regime that has treasured accountability, performance. Think about the moves that the Mets and Sandy Alderson made early in the year when guys clearly just couldn't cut it. And they were quick to move.
This is a team in transition with the new regime, and Sandy Alderson has had a full year to look it over. And like I said the last couple days, I'm very curious of which direction this team's going to go. But certainly the brass needed to have a look at the whole overall picture of the organization from top to bottom. And now they will go forward from here. And it'll be very curious to watch in the offseason.
1, 2, 3 inning. We head for the 9th. Last inning of the year. Look who's up in the bullpen. Batista going for the ninth inning on the final day of the season. Mets holding on to a 3-0 lead. Edgar Renteria leading off against Miguel Batista, who's trying for his first complete game and first shutout since July of 2006. And the 40-year-old right-hander working on a 2-hitter. Renteria has one of the 2 hits, singled in the first inning. A ball and a strike to Renteria. Joey Votto and Jay Bruce on deck. Chant of re-sign Reyes is going on.
Oh, nice.
In the small gathering.
Sandy Alderson said October will be the King's month, right?
Well, 3 days from the month of Reyes. On Sandy Alderson's calendar. But when you look at this team going forward, Reyes obviously is job 1, and every job after that has the word pitching next to it.
Yes, it does. It does. Sandy said that got a lot of quantity effort from the starters and how they took their starts every 5th day, just looking for a little more quality next year.
And then the question is, as you try and build up your farm system with better pitchers, which has certainly been a big note on the to-do list for the Mets, and they've already done a nice job bringing in some quality arms. Do you look for stopgaps to wait for those guys to be ready? Or do you go out and try and bring in more established pitchers to try and round out your rotation?
I think they started to do that last year, right? With Chris Capuano, of course, and Chris Young. Young was outstanding till going down. And Capuano, to me, Gary, even though he's going to finish the year 11 and 12, just the professional effort every single time out there. You know, maybe at this time of his career he's a 6 or 7 inning pitcher, but that's all right too. That's fine. And had some amazing moments here in his best game of his career, in fact, in this uniform that night against Atlanta.
Two to Renteria. But at the end of the day, the Mets have to have some pitchers who can go deeper into games. And, you know, hopefully Johan Santana comes back and does that and takes some of the pressure off the bullpen.
Boy, if he comes back and can be, he's not going to be the old Johan, because the old Johan I'm thinking about is the guy that pitched for the Minnesota Twins. But if he can come back and just his presence on the field just changes everything. He is a winner, complete pitcher.
Tejada handles the grounder. Renteria out, one away. Tonight starting at 10:30, get continued coverage of today's Mets Red season finale, plus everything New York sports on Geico Sports Night tonight at 10:30 only on SNY.
And he's a guy you talked about taking pressure off guys. He's just a, you know, he's royalty, baseball royalty. When you have someone like that on your team, it changes the whole dynamic.
Here's Joey Votto, 0 for 2 in a walk. Reds have not had a hit since the second inning. When Chris Heisey led off with a double, he was stranded at third.
Interesting. Votto needs one more big fly to get to 30. I would say this would be the one at bat that you go up there to swing hard.
Oh, there it was.
He didn't get cheated.
There it was.
I think he set that up perfectly, Ronnie.
Well, the Reds will have just a quick little hour flight home. Not so bad.
Batista's retired 22 of the last 24 batters. A couple of walks, the only blemish. 1 and 2.
Well, that ball caught Brian Runge right through the 5-hole. Paulino didn't get any leather on it and just caught the umpire. Paulino asked if he was all right, and Runge said, well, I'd be all right if you caught the ball.
He's knocking
much
down.
Better.
That's why those umpires wear shin guards. 1-2 to Votto. Pulled down to first. And Evans makes the toss, 2 out. Well, right after Keith and Ron and I are done here, be sure to keep it tuned for Lincoln Postgame Live. Chris Carlin and Bobby Ojeda will be along with a recap of the season, analysis, and they'll take you to Terry Collins' final press conference of the season. All on Lincoln Postgame Live right after the game right here on SNY.
That's going to be a doozy.
I think I'll stick around and listen to it.
I think so.
Well, there's certainly going to be some questions asked about the way Reyes was pulled out of the game in the first inning after getting his hit.
Big chance, Jose Reyes.
Jay Bruce is 0 for 3, grounded out, flied out, struck out. In case you missed it, Reyes got a bunt single leading off the bottom of the first, was lifted for a pinch runner at that point. He's averaged at .337, 2.5 points ahead of Ryan Braun, who would need to go 3 for 4 or better tonight to overtake Reyes and win the National League batting title. 122 pitches for Batista, who's thrown as many as 126 in a major league game, but that was 11 years ago. And Jay Bruce hits it out to left. Willie Harris back and makes the catch. And Miguel Batista finishes off a 2-hit shutout to close out the Mets' 50th season of baseball.
Terry Collins, of course, going up to all of his team and telling them the job they did this year. Collins coming out to shake hands, and a great job by Batista. Emergency start, pitches the final game, pitched a shutout for the first time since 2006.
The Mets finished their year with 77 wins and 85 losses, 2 wins less than they had last year, and their 3rd straight losing season. But the Mets hope it's a stepping stone toward the future rather than a step backwards. And Batista, at 40 years of age, puts on the capper with a 2-hit shutout.
Congrats to the local kid, Mike Baxter. Mike from Whitestone, big fly.
Well, the end of 7 months. It all started 7 months ago. in March in spring training. And now another year over here. And a lot of curiosity and questions going forward, which direction this team will go.
It'll be interesting to see if Reyes came out. There he is.
Yeah, he did. The players tossing their caps into the crowd, saluting the fans who have come out here on the final day.
First time that it was ever done, Gary. 1984. Ever done.
Nice gesture.
From a player's standpoint, they're going over to the third base side. That's a wonderful thing to do right there.
Yeah!
Hey, Wally. Giving it to a young guy.
Nice job, Ethan.
Last game of the year, time for handshakes. Happiness at the victory. And now the off-season begins and the planning for 2012.
Ready to run and move, man.
There's your final game summary of the year. Miguel Batista with the 2-hit shutout. His first complete game in shutout in 5 years. And Jose Reyes gets a hit in his only at bat, leaves the game at that point, and finishes the year with a .337 average. And he plans to have a few friends over tonight, watch the Brewers game, and see whether he'll win himself a batting championship. Mets win the finale 3-0. Keith and Ron and I will have some thoughts in just a moment.